All right, so here's what I want you to understand, because you just saw me block this area of the truck, right? Hyperlapse, block it. Up in here, I'm getting to a part where it curves away from it. Up here, same way, getting to a part where it curves away from it. Originally, whenever I sanded this the first time in the epoxy, before I put any filler over top of it, this area right here showed up to me as a low spot. I could see it because the epoxy stayed shiny right in this area here, whereas this part of the area this part of the area stayed shiny where it's real white, and this black area right here dulled out where I was hitting it, because this is high, this is low, right? Remember, I know I'm showing you on black on white, and you're seeing black and white here. This is the black of the epoxy up underneath this layer here. This is still a low area here. These are low areas. All of these along here are low areas. You look over here at the door, right, the edge of the fender, right here. You see how this turned bright white while none of this here was touched? It's because there's a body line right there that is a soft body line. It's where this rolls, this goes up, and this rolls in. Is this ever going to be flat? No, it's not. Just like this will never be flat unless you flatten it against this door here. So I could come back in and I could feel 2 inches on either side of this door gap and get this completely flat to where it sands flat from one panel to the other. Again, every vehicle that is manufactured currently in the United States of America, even overseas, has these same body issues on every single car. Truck, SUV, doesn't matter, unless you're getting a complete show car quality. And I mean like museum quality. I wouldn't even say museum, because museum would still leave those in there, because that would be factory. I mean, if it's factory, it's going to be left in if it's a museum car, unless it's for a specific show or an award. But again, these places on top of the fender, right here, I'm not going to worry about them, because this is a curved surface, so it's already going to look to your eye, it's already going to look odd anyhow, because you're going to have, if there's a light shining across it, the light is never going to be straight on this panel right here from here up. It's always going to have a curve to it. It's going to look like it's curved that way on this panel here. It's never going to look straight. It's always going to look curved like a half moon shape. On flat panels like this, if you get the light just right, it should reasonably stay straight. But anywhere it dips, like I said, light bends, it refracts. All of that plays into the factor of how far you go in blocking and sanding. You could spend thousands of hours blocking and sanding and still not get something completely smooth. Again, we're just trying to do it like we would do our own truck. And so you're going to notice that on this wheel arch here as well. You're going to notice it around where the emblem was actually mounted. This area here, you're going to notice it around these holes here. You're going to notice it around the wheel arch. There are going to be little places that are left that you're going to say, man, Mark, you're missing so much of the bodywork on this truck. And it's not that I'm missing so much of the bodywork. It's that, simply put, it's not merited. It's not warranted to do that bodywork for the small amount of results that you are looking for. I mean, you're talking 1,000 hours. If you get body labor rates right now in my local area are anywhere from $75 to $100 an hour. 100, even at $75 an hour times 1,000 hours, that's $75,000. How many people do you know are going to pay $75,000 to paint something that they're going to drive daily? I don't know many, unless they just have money to put into it. And quite frankly, I don't know that I would feel good about charging somebody $75,000 for another 1,000 hours of blocking and sanding and priming. I would rather give them And this sounds completely terrible. And I understand people with mindsets like mine, somebody who grew up, you know, always taught do the very best that you can. It sounds contradictory to say I'm gonna give them a 85 to 90% truck or vehicle paint job, not just because that's what they paid for, but at the same time, it's because that's what they ask you for. So you're giving them 100% of what they ask you for. A lot of times, even 110, 150% more than what they've asked you for. But it's a matter of what the customer and the client wants, right? I'm not in it to do it for myself, but at the same time, if the customer wants it a certain way, I'm gonna try my best to give it to the customer the way that they want it. And Pops agrees with me on this. That's the way his business has always ran, and the way he's always done business with people, not just in the car industry, but in any area. And that's the way he taught me as I was coming up and growing up in his household. And I've kind of stuck with that even as I left. So again, body's not going to be 100% perfect. No matter who you are, you're never getting 100% perfect. If you do, honestly, and this is honest from me, I would really like to see it. And if I could come examine it myself, not just on a video, not just on a picture, not just over the internet, I would like to come look at it in person myself and look at it with the eye that I have, uh, because I may see something that you might have missed, that you might not even thought about. If you say it's 100%, it's highly likely that I won't see that, because you've been at it longer than I have. You've done a lot more than what I have. But I genuinely, I would like to see 100% completely flat, completely smooth panels on all of them. Uh, no dirt nibs, no bugs, no trash, no orange peel, nothing like that. I would really like to see it. So if you got it, leave it in the comments below, because I'm telling you, I will hitch a flight or rent a car to come out there and see you, if you allow me to come out there and take a look at it, and just learn from you, learn from your body shop procedure. Because like I said, I'm not saying that I'm doing it perfect way. By far, I'm probably not doing it the perfect way. It was the way that I was taught by Pops, the way that I learned off of YouTube University, the way that I learned from other painters that I knew, that I've talked to, that I've tried to get imparted knowledge, tried to get knowledge imparted into me from. They've told me, this is the way, this is the best way to go about doing it, and the simplest, fastest, most effective way to do it. And so that's what I'm doing. So all right, so it's pretty warm out here. It's I think a heat index of 104, 105, something along those lines. It's all good. Got the fans going. We're not working out here the entire night like we normally have been. We're taking it easy. So we're just trying to sand on this cab. I've already got the hood sanded back. Remember, we feather filled it. I got the hood, like I said, I got the hood sanded back, got half of the cab corner on the passenger side sanded back. I'm working on the door right now. So let me show you the hood. And so on the hood, like I said, you can see these spots where the epoxy showing back through. Those technically would be considered a high spot, but whenever you rub your hand across them, you really can't feel them. Places like this right here, I don't know if you guys can see or not. You can kind of see an edge around it. Those you're probably going to feel. There's a line here in the filler where I filled. Remember, I filled on either side of this ridge that's here. Filled on either side. There's places here that didn't quite get filled, or either I got a piece of trash in there as I drug my spreader down across it and it left a gouge. I've got to go back and fix those. I've got several places on this hood marked out where I've got to go back in and finish filling, just to make sure that the hood doesn't look wavy and everything else. So let me show you. Let me show you what I'm using. So I'm using some black guide coat right here. Basically, it's just graphite. And then best thing that I found, and there's a lot of talk about this out there on the old interwebs with everybody. I just use a piece of stock aluminum. This is 1/8 inch by 1.5 inch wide. This is just what I cut off of a 3-foot piece. This is probably 14, 15, 16 inches, something like that. And basically, I use it as a hard panel against these panels. The reason I do that is because it gives you a longer area to block out the smaller waves that are in all of these panels. All panels on all vehicles have waves in them. I don't care who you are, how good you are at this. You can minimize the appearance of those waves, but they are always there in the panels. Guarantee you, if you look at anything, even the most high-end show cars, there's still waves in them. The difference is they use longer blocks. This being a block, they use longer blocks, and so it makes the wave a larger wave across the whole entire panel instead of the shorter, narrower waves, ripples that you see down the panel. Basically, what I'm doing with this is just trying to check my bodywork and to get a longer wave into the panel. Let's say, it sounds terrible, I get it, but it's the reality that we work with, because nothing is absolutely straight, nothing's ever absolutely square. It's a nice theory, but it doesn't normally work out like that. So I go over the truck with this. So 9 times out of 10 on most American-made vehicles, the panels are never completely flat. And what I mean by that is over a 6-inch period or a 6-inch space, most of the panels aren't flat enough that a flat piece of block will completely touch on every area. But with this piece of aluminum, it is fairly rigid, but it does flex a little bit. And so what that helps me do is it helps me conform to those panels and the shape of those panels. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand the doors, fenders, roof, this whole cab. I did this same thing on the bed inside, and I was able to eliminate at least 80 to 90% of the short ripples that were in the bed. And so I'm doing this to the cab in order to get those ripples and those waves down to a more manageable area to where it doesn't catch the eye so much. Because with this being in black, any little ripple you're going to be able to see. Again, there's a lot of variables that go into this thing. If there's orange peel within the paint, that's going to detract and take away from the ripples. If it's slick like glass and looks like a mirror, you're going to be able to see every single ripple, every single divot, every single dent, right? So that's why I spent so much time filling and working this truck, is because it is black and it's going to show everything. And I'm not the master of all this by any means, and I don't know anybody who is. I'm doing the best that I've got with what I've got, and hopefully the customer will be satisfied with it. I feel that he will be. But what I want to show you is what it leaves behind whenever you sand, if there's high and low spots. All right, so over here on this door, I just started sanding right here on this section right here. And as you can see, where the white is, that's actually the feather feel, the primer down below. And where the black is here, this is still where it's left my guide coat. And that technically shows me that there's a low area. Now, what you as a viewer need to be aware of is different places have different tensions and uses on panels, right? So you're going to see typically Around a door handle on most vehicles, there's always going to be a higher spot and a lower spot surrounding these panels. You can work a lot of that out. There's a lot of time that's going to go into fixing just these little areas, because this area right here around this bolt hole is actually raised out, and I've actually already went through down to the metal, which is as far as I can go with this. But that's because that's the way the factory designed this door. With this bolt area right here, it actually raises up, so it actually, instead of being flat like this, it actually curves up around these bolt holes. Well, as a result of that, as my sanding block right here goes across this, it catches this high and causes a low all the way around this area. Now, this does extend up into this upper handle area, but a lot of times that too will come from pulling on the door or shutting the door with the handle instead of pushing up here or down here on the door, whatever. You're going to notice some more of that around the door lock, because like I said, there's tension. There's a clip that goes behind this door lock that causes it to push out against the door. That's how it keeps it in place. Same with the mirror holes that I've tapped and put nut certs in here. You're going to notice some different places around them. Main areas I'm looking for, there's probably going to be a little bit of a low area right here where the door, at the door gap where the door meets the fender. There's a natural curve to that door area all the way down it on every single vehicle. If it was flat, and some people on high-end show cars make them flat, if it's flat and you get the panel gap too small, then that door, whenever you open it, is going to touch the fender and come in contact with the fender edge, and it's going to chip the paint. Car companies roll that door edge. They roll it so that whenever you open the door, there's enough of a gap there that it doesn't come in contact with that fender. I'm leaving all that because this is not a show quality truck. The customer has repeatedly stated that he doesn't want a show quality truck. He wants it done to the best of my ability, but he doesn't want a show quality truck. It's not what he's paying for. He's paying for most of the dents to be out of it. He's paying for a reasonably slick paint job, and he's paying for getting it back into a semi-new condition, like what it was bought at. Restoration, right? We're not doing it for a high-end show car. If we were doing a high-end show car, if this was a high-end show truck that was going on a circuit to be shown in a museum or anything like that, then generally what I would have done is I would spend probably 2 to 3 times the amount of time that I'm on it now. And we've been on this thing, like I told you, remember, about almost a year. I would have spent 2 to 3 times that amount just on the initial phase of priming, sanding, filling. We're not doing that for this one. Customer already knows it, but I'm just letting you know, the viewer know, what we've got going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you up to the side, because I realized in the last video that I gave you that I told you I was going to set you up in the corner and let you watch me sand, and the video side of that, you can blame the cameraman. Hi, I'm the cameraman. You can blame him for not getting the right footage for you. So I'm trying to put you up close and personal right here in the midst of it, and I'm going to show you what this sanding block will show you on this door. Even though I've spent probably every bit of 50 hours, maybe 20 in between 30 and 50 hours on this cab, getting it prepped before I ever reach this stage of sprayable filler. Okay, just keep that in mind. 50 hours already, blocking it by hand, sanding it, filling it, finding all the dents, marking them out, sanding them, getting everything in where it needs to be, epoxy, sanding it again, filling it, sanding it, filling some more, sanding it, getting it ready for this coat of primer. And there's still at least 2 more coats of primer to go on top of this after I get this one blocked. So when people who do restorations, not even people who do restorations, the average person who does this at home, you don't have to go through all this. I'm just telling you that to say this. You don't have to go through all this. The customer is probably not expecting me to go through all this, but at the same time, it's the way I would do my own truck. So I'm going to do it the way I would do my own truck for him. So sit back, let's watch this, and I'm going to show you after just a couple passes of this sandpaper. This is 220 grit that I've got on here right now. Previously, all of this had been sanded with 80, then 180 epoxy, and all of the filler that had been put on in any of the dents in any of the places was final sanded with 180 currently, before I sprayed this filler on there. And so now we're doing 220, and I may, after I get some of these extra places filled, go back over it with another coat of this. Hadn't made my mind up yet, but I have that option because this is a polyester primer filler, and we can go right over the top of it with actual filler, or we can go back over it with primer or anything else we want to. Technically, I could go over it with base coat, but this is a very porous material, just like the filler is. And so it's going to absorb a lot of moisture. That's why it was so important that I epoxied this whole entire cab before I even started working the original filler over top of it. Because if there's any bare metal spots, bigger, according to this manufacturer, bigger than the size of a quarter or a $half, I had to prime them before I sprayed this over the top. And I did do that before I sprayed this over the top by spraying epoxy. And then I came back and sanded it and ended up going back over it with this feather feel. So let's get to sanding. It's getting hot. I'm sweating. And if I ain't moving and I'm sweating, I just prefer to be moving and sweating at the same time. So I'm going to show you, like I said, this is a relatively hard block. It does flex just a little bit. But this panel, I was always taught by Pops to go in an X pattern. So that means going this way, right? And then coming back and going this way. Different schools of thought on it. Some people say you're supposed to go this way with your block kind of tilted a little bit and keep in parallel with the ground, and then you come back and do it the other way. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense because you're still creating straight lines in here. I don't want to create straight lines. I want to make sure that it's flat. So I'm going to go in that X pattern that I've always been shown. And as you can see, with just a couple passes, you start to see different things show up. You start seeing high and low places on this thing show up. Now, a lot of people are going to say, man, that looks like that door is beat all to pieces, man. I mean, you know, how can you tell a customer that you fixed that whenever you still had the high and low places like that? Well, it's because of this. If it's not a dramatic low place like this around the lock, like I told you before, see how much darker this is compared to this low spot here and this low spot here? That's because this will actually show up and you can feel it with your hand whenever you run across it. These, you probably aren't going to be able to feel with your hand. Will they show up whenever you spray it with black? Probably so. So this is where the multiple coats of feather feel and primer and epoxy and even the paint and the clear come into play, because a lot of this will be blocked out by hand sanding, by blocking over the course of this entire build. Most people will freak out whenever they see this and think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to fill that entire door, and that's the only way that I'm going to get it straight. Truth is, for a high-end show car, that's generally what's done. Those that you see on TV that they do for a living, that they put in the Riddler, get the Riddler awards and stuff like that, that's what they do. They go back and they fill the entire vehicle with a skim coat of filler before they ever spray this on it. Again, we're not doing a show truck. The customer's not paying me to go that far. And quite frankly, if it's a daily driver or it's going to be a reasonable use driver, you're not going to want to go that far to do that, because that's a lot of time, money, and materials that's going to be put into that are just going to be a waste the first time you get a scratch or a dent right there in the door. And hate to tell you, but if you live here in the South, and if this customer drives it to the grocery store or drives it to the hardware store and parks beside somebody, the likelihood this day and age that somebody's going to end up scratching it, denting it, or at least rubbing up against it or pushing up against it is a high probability. And then you just wasted all that time and money. You can't always keep vehicles in a bubble. If it's going to a museum, yeah, all right, I see the reason behind that. But if it's going to be a daily driver, man, let it be. Let it be. Don't freak out over stuff like this, because like I said, after blocking it all the way, you'll see that it'll end up changing what it looks like. So I'm going to continue on this, and I'll bring you back. All right, so here you go. Now, what did I tell you? What did I tell you about this door lock area? I told you were going to see a low spot around it because the clip that holds it on the back ends up pushing this area out for the door lock. It actually pulls the door lock in toward the door, but the clip itself has tabs that bow out on either side. So this will somewhat get pulled out whenever I install the door lock. Your eye is not naturally drawn to this area anyhow. Same with this area here, around where these mirrors mount. Like I said, you can see that there's low spots here. That's basically where the original sheet metal screw that was put in for these mirrors were screwed in, and it drew the metal out in the center here, which caused all of this area to be low. Generally speaking, you're not going to see a lot right around these areas here. Your eye is not going to be drawn to it that much. This place here is where I've actually cut through this feather fill all the way down to the epoxy. So I know that that's a high spot in comparison to all of the rest of the surrounding area. Right here at the door gap, like I said, about an inch back all the way down. Now you see that some of this has actually sanded off, but generally it's an inch wide all the way down, and that is where this actually rolls in toward that gap to keep it from chipping the paint on the fender. I'm not going to be messing with that because that's the way it's done from the factory. I will simply block this out to get it smooth. And you may be wondering, well, let's look up here. I just sanded this just a little bit. Why has it got so much texture? Well, that's the texture of the feather fill whenever I sprayed it. And so what I'm doing is all of these dots are high and low spots within the feather fill itself, not within the panel, but within the feather fill itself. And so what I'm doing with that flat block is I'm knocking off the highs, leaving the lows, and it's indicated by the guide coat, the black guide coat, gray, whatever you want to call it. Let's go down here and talk about this spot. This spot here, where I broke through the epoxy, or broke down to the epoxy again. But right beside it is a low spot. This low spot you can feel with your hand. So therefore it will be getting glazing putty put on it to fill that out. Now, could I feel it originally? I thought I could feel it, but there was places within this door here that I actually filled, specifically right here in this area here, because I actually am just about to break through to the filler that I put in this area. And you can see that there is a little bit of light shading right here, indicating low spots on either side of this area that I filled here, because there was a big dent. Basically, the way it was described to me and the way that I learned it is you never really get a dent to completely go away. You simply expand that dent over a large enough area that the eye cannot visually see it within the panel. And so what this is indicating to me is there's ever so slightly a little bit of low area around this where I filled it. But again, Being that light compared to this darker color, that to that, tells me that once I block this and prime this and block it again, you will not be able to see that. So I'm not wasting material trying to fill this, because then as I fill this, there's going to be a low spot on either side of it. And then I'm simply chasing it all the way across the panel, trying to get this one spot smooth that ends up coating the whole door. Not wasting time, not wasting material on that. This will come out whenever I block sand the primer in the second stage of primer that I do. These areas here, I'll probably end up filling this lower one here. I'm not going to worry too much right around this area where the mirror actually screws into and mounts, because I have these nut certs here. It's not a big concern of mine. This area here, I'll put some finishing putty on it. These areas right here around the back side of the door, that could be from where somebody's opened the door and it has hit either a pole or something along those lines to bend that in a little bit, because as you can see, it doesn't follow that same 1-inch rule all the way up here. If it was factory and that's the way that the factory did it, it would be all the way up. I'm not really going to be concerned about that, because the likelihood of that getting hit again is high, high, high if it's parked anywhere near a pole or near an obstacle. So not concerned about that. All right, let's go down here to the lower part. Remember, I filled these places here. I actually put in patch panels down here, right? Well, I ended up having to fill this whole lower area. And as you can see, there are low spots here, 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 and here. This whole section right here, all the way up and down this cab, actually rolls to the back. Part of the aerodynamics of this cab is from the factory. It all rolls and tapers to the back. So the reason that's still dark is because I just haven't sanded it, because it's going to take something different than my long block to sand it, but still make it smooth. These places here still need to have filler put in them, glazing putty put in them in order to fix them, because they are too low, because they are so dark. This is where epoxies broke through. Epoxies broke through here. You can see where I'm down to my filler here. Like I said, there's several different areas. This area right here is actually down below the epoxy, down into the original base coat. So this is actually a high spot. Typically, if I was doing a show truck, I would end up tapping that down and then coming back in and filling my tap marks down to where you didn't see that anymore. These trucks have dips and turns and everything else around windows, because this is around one of the major windows. You're going to have that in the body lines where these panels were pressed from the factory. Don't worry about them too much. Sorry, I'm sweating like a pig, I know, but don't worry about those too much, because you will drive yourself insane trying to fix all of them. Basically, I'm just getting the darkest ones that I find and trying to make it smoother than what it was whenever it came to me. I'm really intrigued to see this roof up here, because I spent quite a bit of time on this roof, and you saw that I filled over half of the roof because of the dents, the hail damage that was up there, and the welded up holes that we had to weld up for the running lights up here. I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. Probably not going to get there tonight. I'm trying to just get this door and this fender done tonight, because it is, as you can see, I'm sweating buckets out here. And yeah, I'm going to go home before I get too dehydrated. But anyhow, I'm going to keep sanding on this. I'm going to put it on a time lapse so you guys can see me sand it. Just keep in mind, so the reason that I taped this fender up where I'm sanding is because I don't want my sanding on the door to affect my sanding on the fender. Remember, this is filler primer. So if I sand it, it sands very easily and it will gouge very easily. So if I sand this door and my block is over this seam, then it will cut into this panel and try and flatten this panel at the same level this door is. I don't want that currently, because like I said, there's a taper here, there's another taper here. I don't want to create that super flat surface there, because I don't want to take a chance of chipping the paint whenever the door is open. And I don't want it to create a flat spot here, because this fender is actually it rolls into the fender well here, the fender lip, the wheel well lip, and it rolls into the groove or the gap here for the door gap. And it also rolls up and down this way, right? Both directions. So I'm working with half or 3/4 of a circle whenever I'm trying to sand and trying to make a flat panel. You're not always going to find the perfect tool to fit it every single time. And all of these blocks, long blocks, any of them that the big companies are trying to sell you, you can make your own. They are designed for specific tasks, for specific people. And if you're not one of those people, then you're wasting your money. Just being honest, being upfront with you. I've heard it many times by many older body men who have been out here and done it for decades, and I mean decades, that have turned out some quality show cars. Never had those tools to begin with. They always learn how to make stuff work with what they have, and that's what I'm doing here with this piece of aluminum. So let me set you up. We're going to finish sanding this door, finish sanding this fender, and then I'll come back to you. This is pretty much all of the door except for the lower part down here. I haven't touched any of that around the door handle there. Hadn't touched any of that. But this is pretty much most of the door and the fender completely blocked with 220. You probably saw me switch out blocks whenever the time lapse is going. Maybe you didn't. But I swapped out from the 16 inch piece of aluminum to a soft sponge. This is a dual-sided sponge. Black is hard, gray is soft. I was on the black side. It just allows me to get around some of the roundness around the fender well lip around here, and in the doors just a little bit. And like I said, everything's not always flat. If you try to make it always flat, you end up causing more trouble for yourself, because you'll end up blocking on a flat spot on two different sides of the roundness. And as you can see in this wheel lip here, if I'd have blocked that flat, it would have flattened all of that around through there. But because I used that soft sponge a little bit, it made it easier to get that completely blocked out without flattening that out too much. And so you just have to kind of make the stick fit the panel, right? That's the best way to know how to show you. But as you can see, even though I used a soft sponge panel, you can still see that there are places just like this and this and this that are still low, that are going to have to be filled. Even that spot down there on the door, lower part of the door, I told you was going to have to be filled. Same way, even the door gaps here, some of that still showing through. But like I said, there's some small places over and beyond what I've already filled that I'm gonna go back with fiber, or not fiber fill, but finishing putty, and fill those. Finishing putty is basically just a finer grade of filler, so that way there's less likely to be pinholes in it, and it will sand with a finer grit sandpaper. So I'll probably come back and do that once I get the whole truck blocked out. That way I can see everything at once, and I can kind of fill them, walk around and fill them as I go. Again, these mirror spots right here, you see that they're still showing dark around them. I'm not too worried about those because there'll be a bar all the way across that, I think. No, the bar is up top. I'm sorry. This will just be individual pieces around those. So it's highly likely you're not going to see those. Not too extremely worried about it. If the customer sees this and decides he wants them done, then I'll go back and do them. If not, then we'll call it good and see what we can get done. I'm getting out of here for tonight. Like I said, I'm completely soaked head to toe. and I'm ready to get into some AC and kind of chill out for a little bit. Uh, Hopefully this helps you a little bit. Like I said, to know that not everything's perfectly straight. Not everything's going to be perfectly straight. But if you use a flat or straight block to block sand the body panels, it will get the ripples out, which will make your paint job look smoother, and it will minimize any differences between where you filled places, Bondo, filler, whatever you want to call it, and the rest of the paint job. It's the way most body men do it. It's the way I do it. May not be the right way, but it's the way I was taught, the way I learned. And so that's the way we keep doing it. So we have block sanded the feather fill, which had one coat on it. We have filled in with glazing putty the remainder of the dents or low places that the feather fill showed up. And now I'm getting ready to wipe everything down, tape it up, put 3 coats of feather fill on it to try and see if we can make sure that all the rest of these are, if there's any low spots left whatsoever, that they're all covered. I spent about 7 hours out here the other night trying to make sure that all these low spots were filled. And, you know, you never really know what all you're going to find until you start blocking stuff and actually block it down well enough that you find them. But yeah, so anyhow, here's what the hood looks like. Like I said, you can see where I spot filled a lot of the places in here with glazing putty. There are some, like I said, some high spots that are showing back through from where I blocked this whole hood. Hopefully the feather fill will cover those up again and allow it to level out and smooth out right. Finished filling the lower half of this rear quarter on the passenger side. A couple spots here. I got one more spot up here that I showed you guys originally that I needed to take care of. And like I said, this is what it shows up whenever you sand it and block it. You can see that this spot here is actually still low. It's high on either side here, which indicates that there was probably a dent in this area. And so the metal is actually caved in even out into this area here. But I ended up blocking it back down to the base. And so that's why this is with the white color and it's not showing any of the guide coat, but only this is showing the guide coat, is because I've already blocked it out. Up here on top, like I said, we got everything pretty well filled up here on top. Like you can see, let me walk you around to the other side. Finally got my new scaffolding in last week as well. Got a few spots here on the fender that showed up. Few spots over here that I had to fill around these fenders. Like I said, there's a few more spots that are showing up. Got some sand scratches here that didn't quite come out, hoping that they come out with the feather fill. Some spots on that door was filled. A few spots back here on this rear quarter where we had to patch that whole entire quarter on that one. But yeah, I mean, everything's coming along pretty good. We got some storms scheduled to come blowing in this week. This is the week of the 4th. I'm planning on, if all goes the way that I hope it does, I'm planning on taking the 4th off to spend some much needed quality R&R with the family and just kind of get away from this thing for a hot minute. But hopefully I can get it in feather fill tonight or tomorrow, 1 to 2. That way it'll have long enough time to cure, and then I can come back and block it. You know, this thing took me like 5 days to block. Wasn't really expecting it to take that long for me to block, to be honest with you, because I don't recall it taking quite that long to block originally to start out sanding with. But like I said, touching every single panel with these 10 digits, so it takes time and effort and a lot of sweat. I've got the guy coming in tomorrow to work on the side steps. The fabricator, he's coming down tomorrow afternoon to try and see what all I want him to do for us and see what all he needs in order to make things happen. just barely. That's one coat on the top, 2 coats on the hood, 1 coat around everywhere else, all over the body. Time to go get this gun cleaned up and time to head to the house because I'm done for tonight. I'll catch you tomorrow. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here on the 4th of July week. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned and I'll see you on the next one.